So what is corruption? As per the World Bank, corruption is the use of public resources for the private gain. Second ERC report has given the formula for the corruption. Monopoly plus secrecy plus discretion minus accountability summarizes corruption. Monopoly plus secrecy plus discretion minus accountability summarizes corruption. So monopoly of the state and secrecy of the government in the decision making process, and discretion of the official and lack of accountability makes the perfect recipe for corruption. So monopoly of the state, secrecy of the government in the decision making, discretion of the official and lack of accountability make the perfect recipe of the corruption. Before the LPG reforms, the whole license Raj, inspector Raj, there was a complete monopoly. Causes of the corruption. As per second ERC report, there are two major causes of corruption. First one is systematic and other is systematic. Systemic and other is systematic. So there are two causes of corruption. One is systemic and other is systematic. So first is related to the functioning of the system, which is a political system, economic system, administrative system. First is related to the functioning of the system, which are political system, economic system, administrative system. And corruption is in an organized manner. That is an institutionalized corruption. And corruption in an organization is an institutionalized corruption. In an organized manner is the institutionalized corruption. What is institutionalized corruption? Corruption is an organized manner. Political issue, electoral corruption. So election are the one of the major arena of the flow of the black money and which has contributed to the corruption in several cases. Example, total fund spent by the political party in 2014 election was 40,000 crore. 5,000 crore was donation and 35,000 crore was unaccounted black money. So opportunistic politics for the personal gain and not policy of principle and opportunities policy is for the personal gain and not the policy of principles. So next is between political class and corporate class. Regarding administrative cost, first point is red tapeism and complex administrative procedure. So administrative causes because of the red tapeism and complex administrative procedure. There is a lack of transparency in the functioning of the government, colonial legacy of corruption and bureaucratic corruption. Economic causes, excessive regulation license led to cronic capitalism, chronic socialism, which was a major cause of corruption at that time. So excessive regulation license Raj led to the crony socialism, which was a major cause of corruption at that time. The kind of the controlling power the government had, which lead to the chronic socialism. This has been mainly the corruption of the resources. So this has mainly corruption of the resources. For example, three areas identify the major corruption: minerals, real estate, and defense. So social and cultural causes. What are the social and cultural causes? So corruption, the way of life in Indian society. It is a way of life in the Indian society. There is no empathetic anger against the corruption, social and cultural nature. So there is an acceptation of corruption as a necessary evil. This is there almost on every level, from grassroots to the top level. Solving the issue of the corruption also become a challenge. So it is sometimes accepted as it is. So rent-seeking attitude. It is the money for doing job or duty by the official from the public. So it is a rent-seeking attitude of officer. It is a money for doing job duties and official from the duty by the official from the public. So bureaucrats or maybe the lower civil servants, where they feel that it is a right to take the money. So this is a rat seeking attitude. Q, quid pro quo. So the quid pro quo, that you will do something for me, I will do something for you. So it's a quid pro quo. This lead to the collision and access for mutual benefit. International perception gets negatively affected if there is a high level of corruption in the country. So international perception gets negatively affected if there is a high level of corruption in the country. India ranked in the corruption perception index in 81 out of 180 countries. Corruption is negatively affect the investment culture and the investment climate in the country. Negatively affect the investment climate in the country. Growth and GDP are also negatively affected due to the presence of a parallel economy. So growth and GDP are also negatively affected due to the presence of parallel economy, means black money. According to second ERC report, ethics in governance, multi-dimensional reform must be implemented simultaneously to fight corruption. According to the ethics in governance, multi-dimensional reform must be implemented simultaneously to fight corruption. Political reform is needed, electoral reform, transparency in funding, which can be achieved by state funding of election, electoral bond, decriminalization of politics, changing in the anti-defection law, reduction in the paid news, and increasing awareness among the citizen. So what is the anti-defection law? Schedule. So it is often seen that anti-defection law is very strict on the paper, but it is hardly followed because of the distribution of the speaker and the presiding officer in the state assemblies. We often see the horse trading and different member is bought by and traded by the other parties, and the use of money is involved, and the money involved is obviously not clear, it's a black money. So it is very important that anti-defection, stringent anti-defection law are in place. are unimplemented. A speaker judgment of anti-defection is also subject to judicial review. In Lily Thomas case, if you are criminally persecuted, then you cannot contest election in the case you have been convicted for a period of the year or two. So if you are criminally persecuted, you cannot be contest election in the case you have been convicted for a period of two. So there was a clause, if you got verdict, then if you have been convicted but you appeal in the higher court, still, and there you can decide the case. You can continue with a member of the parliament. And after this Lily Thomas case, this clause was removed. So immediately after you were convicted, even by any court, it led to the suspension for the more than 2 years. It led to the suspension of the person. So if you decriminalize politics, if you reduce the number of these people who are using money or muscle power to remain in power, there's a high chance the corruption scenario will improve. So if we decriminalize politics and reduce the number of the people who are using money and muscle power to remain in the power, there is a high chance there's a corruption scenario in the country may improve. Bring political parties on RTI under RTI ambit. So we need to bring political party under RTI ambit. Increase the accountability of political classes by introduction of mechanism to recall. The right to recall is if minister is found corrupt, then he may ultimately lose seat because the member will try to recall him back. It is a direct democratic device. Some of the state in India done on the trial, it still exists some places, but response is not very good because the number of the problem. Because there is no way to actually check where the people who were recalling were the same who were voted against the person. And the whole electoral base which was present at the time of the member was elected as the one who were removing it, who are recalling him. And it sometimes is politically motivated. And in India, there is a fund is already a problem. Conducting election again and again is a costly process. And also in the local body election, the DMD office is in the charge of collecting signature from everybody. And some people were for, some people were dead, and before they put the signature. So there is a lot of problem, especially in a country like India where population is so large and literacy level is low to bring such a devices. So what is administrative reform? Use of ICT and technology, corruption because of the human interference. So reduce the discretion of the official by defining responsibility. So we need to reduce the discretion of official by defining responsibility. Use of ICT technology, information communication technology, and e-governance, which reduce the human interference and ultimately helps to solve the problem of the corruption. Mandatory citizen charter should be present in every government organization, but also be revised regularly. So mandatory citizen charter should be present in every organization, must be revised regularly. And the signing of the integrity pact by the government organization. So integrity pact is signed whenever there is a government procurement and the procurement is of high monetary value. For example, self-defense equipment. A procurement of something, a resource or very high amount of money of the goods and services. And for example, we are acquiring some equipment from Israel or South Area. So government signed integrity pact, and there will be very clear definition given. There shall be very limited involvement of the middleman. There shall be limited commissions or no commissions. Whatever the deal they have, in those points will be written in the integrative pact, and it is mandated for the both parties to be abide by the integrative pact. Police reforms are need of the hour, as there is a high amount of corruption involved in that. And legal and institutional framework, strengthening the anti-corruption laws by amending the Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988. So strengthening anti-corruption law by amending the Prevention of Anti-Corruption Act of 1988. Protection must be given to the whistleblower in an institutionalized manner. So protection must be given to whistleblower in an institutionalized manner. People who are public spirited citizen. There may be government official also who come out to be public. They declare any mishappening an event of the corruption during their experiences. Strengthening in the power and authority of the three, that is three C's. We need to strengthen the power of the authority of the three C's, CBC, CBI, and CAG. The appointment of the Lokpal and Lokayukt in every state should be done. Social audit should be regularly conducted to eliminate corruption. Local cell government and urban local bodies can play an important role in social audit to ensure transparency. So local cell government and urban local body can play an important role to ensure transparency. Civil society organization NGO can also help in this process. Economic reform, third generation economic reforms must be implemented like GST, bankruptcy and insolvency code. Third generation and economic reforms should be implemented. Ensure transparency and resource shortening by e-auction. So ensure transparency in the resource shortening by e-auction. Define economic description of the officers clearly. Describe the economic description of the officers clearly. So there is no gray area. and the state monopoly in most of the sectors except the strategic areas. The business of the government is not to be in business. The whole idea of the government is actually to facilitate the private industry actually work as per the needs, and it is for the government to help and add in them resources when they need their approval. They need the government need not to actually compete with them. Government should gradually withdraw from the area where it is not actually needed. Air India is a problem because the international sector is very lucrative, but the domestic sector is pathetic. So people wanted to buy international sector, not the domestic sector, and the government want to sell it as a package deal. Though complete privatization is not possible at a moment because railway occupation is a one area where government needs to be have some proactive intervention. So the fare don't cross a limit. The common man is paying capacity. So because the capacity common man to pay is limited. But at the same time, there are still many areas in the railway where privatization can come. For example, there's a huge manpower in the railway, the biggest employer in the world. It is around 130 lakhs employees. So we need to have reforms in the railway sector, in the core areas and non-core areas. So we can separate the railway in the core area and non-core areas. In the non-core areas, we can allow the private players, for example, IRCTC. For example, food. There is a quality of the food is bad in the train, so we can allow some private company, private player, to provide the high quality foods. So if they charge 30 to 20, 10 to 30 bucks more, if they provide high quality food, so the people will not mind. So the whole booking process can also be outsourced instead of creating memes on IRCTC. So these things can be outsourced to some efficient company. Some aspects of the railway can be privatized, and can services can get better with a problem with the bare minimum increase in price. So the after privatization, so the some of the services in the railway can be better with the bare minimum increase in price. So government should think about gradual withdrawal from the sector and should focus on the economic reforms.